opportunity. No means better things could be around the corner. No isn't the end. Saying no to no. Now, throughout my life, there have been a number of times when I've had to show resilience, also known as stubbornness in my family, when I've said no to no, and greater things have happened, like me standing on this stage right now, talking to you about resilience. I'm going to share some of those events with you, and at the end, I'm going to leave you with 2 questions so that you can say no to no too, and always do this. So for me, it started at a very young age. I was 12 years old, and I really wanted my ears pierced for my birthday, but my dad said, no, you're not getting your ears pierced. And I said, well, that's fine. I don't want anything else for my birthday. And I dug my heels in, and I did get my ears pierced in the end. So it all worked out really well. And then when I was 15, I was at school, and normally in Scotland, when you do your higher grades, you stay on between 16 and 18 at school to do them. But I found out I could go to college, I could be independent, I could be free and responsible for my own time, and I really wanted to do it. But my dad said, no, not while you're living under this roof, you're not leaving school. So I was like, right, fine, I'm going to move out, you just leave me to it. So I did get to go to college, they did sign off on it, and I did get to stay at home as well, so it all worked out in the end. And that was a really great opportunity for me because it afforded me the chance to get to university a year earlier than if I had stayed on at school. But it's also where my next no came from, because I sat 3 higher grades, and I needed all 3 to get into university. But I sadly knew I had failed my maths exam. It was epically failed it. So I went to the university and said, look, I know I failed this. Can I do some summer school? Can I make up the time? I really want to get into university. And the course leader said, oh, don't worry about it. Everyone thinks they've failed. It's not a problem. But let's just wait and see. You'll be fine. And of course, I sat on the doorstep that morning, waited for my exam results because the post used to bring them. And I opened them. And of course, I had failed my maths. I hadn't just failed it, I had failed it epically, as in so bad it didn't even show up on the certificate. And so, of course, with that came the letter from the university saying, sorry, you didn't get in. And that's when my next no, saying no to no came, and my dad helped me with this because he said, hang on, you went to the university, you tried to fix this problem before it happened, so you should go back to them. And so I did, and I put my case forward, and they let me in, and I did get to go to university, and I spent 4 wonderful years there. And that's when another no happened to me. In my final year, I wanted to get a 2-1 upper class honours degree, 2nd class. And I was sailing along at a 2-2 the whole way through university. And my lecturer said to me, you're not going to get that. And I said to him, oh yes, I will. We'll see about that. So I worked so hard that last year. I put all the hours in, I put all the effort and time, and I did get my 2-1. In fact, I got some 1st class honour marks in his class, so I felt really good about it. And then a few years went by, and things were quite good. And eventually I realised that I was having a career one that I thought I should be doing rather than one that I actually wanted to do. And so I decided to quit all that and open a shop. And of course, I live in Guildford in Surrey in England, one of the most affluent areas. It's probably the most expensive place to rent a shop outside of London. And so everyone said, what are you doing? Are you mad? That's so expensive. There's overheads. You've got to be crazy. And I said, no, I've done all the sums. I've got a business plan. I've done market research around town. I know this is going to work. And so I opened the most beautiful shop you've ever seen. It was gorgeous, it had lovely clothes, the decor was amazing. I mean, it was a really stunning shop. But from the minute I opened, it was quiet. Some days, nobody came in. It was absolutely soul-destroying. And what I couldn't have accounted for was brand snobbery. Because Guildford is an affluent area, people wanted to see Dior and Chanel. They didn't know my shop, it was an unknown. And so I struggled on and I fought that no. And then eventually, for the first time in my life, I really had to say yes to no. And I had to give up the shop. I had to close it down. I racked up so much debt, so much so that I couldn't even afford to go bankrupt. I had to save up to go bankrupt. And so that was it. What was I going to do next? I just needed a job. Anything would have done. So I went online and I found an ad for some data classification work. Now, I've never done that before. It was working with procurement spend data, but I thought, well, I've worked in business, so I'm sure I can do it. And that is where I found my absolute true love in data. And so for the last 4 years, I've had my business, and I have worked through so many no's to get to where I am now. I have had months when I could hardly pay my bills. I've had so many clients ghost me. And then during that time, the biggest no of my life happened. And that was when my mum died. She had suffered with depression and body dysmorphia most of her life. And she was in a really bad way. She had taken numerous overdoses over the years. And unfortunately, she was in a really bad way, so we got her into psychiatric hospital. And she got out on an overnight stay, but unfortunately, she didn't want to go back, and so she went missing from the house overnight. She went out without her coat, without her purse. And it was a really long wait overnight to find out, but they found her body in the morning on the beach. And this was when the biggest no of our lives as a family happened, because it was all over social media instantly. We had no control over what was happening with her story. We had no time to grieve privately. And that's when we decided to take control of the story, because a lot of people see these stories. People go missing, bodies found in the water, people jump in front of trains, and I think some people assume that something like that is a really selfish act. And we didn't want people to think of our mum like that, because she was the most wonderful person. She was the life and soul of the party, but her illness just got the better of her. And so we went to the papers and we told her story, and we got her story and picture on the front page so that people knew who she was really like. And that made us feel really good. And of course, you have to get over it and move on, and that's what she would have wanted us to do. So for the next few years, that's what we did. And after the 5 years at the spend analytics company, I decided that I wanted another challenge, but I didn't know where I could get a job doing the same thing. And so I decided to open another business. And everyone said to me, "Are you crazy? You're doing this again? What are you thinking of?" And of course, I was like, no, I really have a great idea this time. There's no overheads. I just know that I have a service I can provide that nobody else is offering. I really want to do this. And that is what I've been doing for the last 4 years before I jumped around on my story. And I have had all these no's. And one that happened last year was when I have been building my business, I've grown a presence online, and I have kind of positioned myself as the expert in my field. And so I wanted to write a book. And so I went to a publisher, and it was going to cost a lot of money. I was going to have to buy a lot of the books, and I just didn't have the money. And I was going to give up. And that's when I got help to say no again. My friend said, "No, you need to speak to my publisher." And so I did. And so did a book proposal, all went really well. 12 months later, I have a book coming out in a few months' time. So, when you have these no's, you don't have to do them on your own, you can get help too. And my business has grown in the last year, 500%. It's, all the hard work is really starting to pay off. But you might look at me and think, well, it's great for Susan because she's doing really well now. But I can tell you that every single day I still have to face no's. And one of the hardest gut-wrenching no's happened to me just this year. Because I now have established myself as an expert, I get invited to a lot of events. And I was asked to go on an online panel. And unfortunately, a few days before the event, I was asked not to go. Because I tried to make data fun and exciting and lively and a bit different. My book title is going to be between the spreadsheets, so it's going to be a bit fun, a bit flirty. They didn't really like that. And so I was uninvited from the panel, and it was so soul-destroying. So much so that for a split second, I thought, maybe I need to change my tactics, who I am, and what I'm doing. And then I had a word with myself and said, no, hang on. You are here because of who you are, because of what you do, most people love it. You have to just let this go. And I'm so glad I did, because literally days later, I was listed as one of the top 10 influential females in procurement. So it really worked out. But that's enough about me. What about you? How can you say no to no? You probably think, oh, well, it's all right for Susan. She's really confident. She's standing up here. She can talk. That's not for me. I can't do that. But I'm here to tell you that every single day, you say no to no, and you don't even realize it. You're doing your grocery shopping in the supermarket, and your favorite bar of chocolate is out of stock. That is the supermarket or the universe telling you that you can't have that chocolate. But are you going to listen? Hell no, you're going to get another bar of chocolate. That is you saying no in the smallest of ways. So how can we get from those small no's to the bigger no's? Well, the first thing that you really need to ask yourself is, does that no bother me? And if it doesn't, move on, walk away, on to the next project, off you go. But if it does bother you, ask yourself this: how can I turn that no into a yes? Now, I'm not asking you to go out and make radically life-changing decisions today. Please do not do that, please. But start small. Start to recognize in your everyday lives those no's. Now, they might not be big no's with neon flashing signs saying no. It might be much more subtle than that. It could be a rejection letter, a postponement, or it could be that little voice in the back of your head saying, you're not good enough. You can't do that. They'll never choose you. When you recognize those, start asking yourself, does it bother me? And if it bothers you, again ask, how can I turn that no into a yes? And when you start to turn some of those no's into yeses, and I have to be honest, not all of them will be able to turn into yeses, just like when I had to close my shop. But when you start to turn some of those no's into yeses, magical things can happen, like doing TED Talks. Thanks very much.